Breaking news: tensions in the South China Sea have erupted once again, sending shockwaves across the region and the world. The latest confrontation is unfolding in real time, and the stakes could not be higher. In the heart of these contested waters, a small and weathered Philippine supply boat finds itself completely encircled by a fleet of imposing Chinese Coast Guard vessels. The size difference is staggering. David facing Goliath on the open sea. Suddenly, powerful water cannons erupt from the Chinese ships, unleashing torrents that hammer relentlessly against the smaller vessel's wooden hull. The force of the water is enough to splinter wood and shatter resolve, a clear message of dominance. On deck, the Filipino crew, clad in bright orange life vests, brace themselves against the onslaught. Each wave threatens to sweep them off their feet, but they hold firm, determined to complete their mission despite the overwhelming odds. Their objective is critical: to resupply the Marines stationed aboard the BRP Sierra Madre, a grounded warship that stands as a symbol of Philippine resistance and sovereignty in these disputed waters. Cameras mounted on the supply boat capture every tense moment, broadcasting this calculated act of intimidation to the world. The footage is raw, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. Each resupply mission has become more than a logistical operation, it's now a high-stakes media event. Journalists risk rough seas and diplomatic fallout to document the unfolding drama, ensuring that every aggressive maneuver is witnessed globally. The Philippine government is acutely aware of the power of documentation. Officials make sure that every incident, every confrontation is recorded and shared, building a case for international support and solidarity. The narrative is clear and compelling: a small nation standing up to a regional superpower, armed not with weapons, but with cameras and the world's attention. It's a modern-day David versus Goliath, where information is as powerful as any fleet. In diplomatic circles, the response is swift. Statements of support for the Philippines pour in from allies and international organizations, while China's actions are condemned as violations of international law and maritime norms. Meanwhile, social media platforms ignite with activity. Hashtags like #AtenangWestPhilippines trend across the Philippines and beyond, rallying public sentiment and drawing global attention to the struggle. The images and videos from the confrontation quickly circulate worldwide, fueling protests and debates. The footage becomes evidence in the court of global opinion, building a powerful case against China's sweeping expansionist claims in the South China Sea. Yet, as the battered Philippine supply boat limps back to port, its crew weary but unbroken, a sobering question lingers in the salty air: what happens next? Will these acts of defiance lead to meaningful change, or escalate into something far more dangerous? One thing is certain: the struggle for the soul of the South China Sea is far from over. With each confrontation, the world is reminded that this is not just a regional dispute, but a pivotal battle over sovereignty, freedom of navigation, and the future of international order. Under President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the Philippines has adopted assertive transparency. The plan documents every instance of Chinese aggression and share it with the world. Journalists and camera crews capture high-resolution evidence of China's actions. The footage is quickly released to media outlets, preempting China's narrative. Manila is winning the information war by being faster and more credible. The strategy exposes China's gray zone tactics and galvanizes international opinion. It aims to build a coalition of countries willing to condemn China's behavior. Domestically, it reinforces national pride and resolve among Filipinos. The constant updates keep the issue at the forefront of the national conversation. This domestic support gives leaders the political space to continue the strategy. The camera has become the Philippines' most effective weapon in this conflict, but transparency alone cannot deter aggression. Faced with global exposure, China has doubled down. Beijing's response to Manila's transparency strategy has been defiance and escalation. Chinese forces in the South China Sea have become more aggressive. Incidents have grown more frequent and dangerous. Recent events paint a clear picture of this escalating pattern. Chinese vessels have used water cannons and ramming tactics against Philippine boats. These actions are acts of physical obstruction, not just intimidation. China accompanies this aggression with a relentless propaganda campaign. Its state media denies wrongdoing and accuses Manila of provocation. The message: international opinion will not dictate China's actions. The risk of a miscalculation leading to conflict is now higher than ever. China chooses to meet transparency with brute force. To understand China's defiance, look into the core ideology of the CCP. The CCP's legitimacy is derived from economic prosperity and national rejuvenation. Any compromise in the South China Sea would undermine the CCP's authority. The party's primary audience is its own citizens, not the international community. Standing firm is a domestic political necessity. China views international law as a system created by Western powers. The CCP believes power, not law, is the ultimate arbiter in global affairs. The Philippines' strategy of assertive transparency is not without precedent. Ukraine has used similar tactics to expose Russian aggression. The Ukrainian government has documented Russian atrocities and military movements. This information has shaped global perceptions and galvanized Western support. Like the Philippines, Ukraine has countered disinformation with transparency. However, transparency alone has not stopped the Russian war machine. The fighting continues, showing that global condemnation is a secondary concern. The lesson for the Philippines: transparency is powerful for alliance building, but it is not a deterrent in itself. The Syrian opposition documented Assad's brutality, generating outrage, yet it failed to trigger decisive intervention. Transparency can create a moral imperative but cannot force action. Sympathy does not always translate into strategic commitment. Manila's strategy of transparency, publicly exposing China's actions in the South China Sea, has succeeded in rallying global opinion to its side. International media coverage, viral videos, and diplomatic statements have all painted a clear picture of the ongoing confrontations. The world has seen the Philippines standing up to a much larger power, and many nations have voiced support for Manila's position. Yet despite this wave of international sympathy and attention, the reality on the water remains unchanged. Transparency alone, it seems, is not enough to stop China's assertive moves. The underlying assumption behind Manila's approach is that the Chinese Communist Party is sensitive to international shame and pressure. The hope is that by shining a spotlight on aggressive behavior, Beijing will be compelled to reconsider its actions. But in practice, China's leadership places far greater value on maintaining territorial control and asserting its claims than on avoiding criticism from Western democracies or global institutions. For Beijing, the strategic and symbolic importance of the South China Sea outweighs any reputational cost. Transparency has certainly exposed the bully, making China's actions visible to the world. However, this exposure has not led to a change in behavior. The pattern of harassment, intimidation, and escalation continues, undeterred by headlines or viral outrage. The core weakness of Manila's approach is clear: it lacks a hard power component. While transparency can shape narratives and build international support, it cannot substitute for credible deterrence or the ability to defend one's own waters. Exposing aggression may generate headlines and spark outrage, but it does little to prevent the next attack. Each new incident risks becoming just another story in a long-running saga, rather than a turning point. Without a credible deterrent, whether military, economic, or diplomatic, Beijing has little incentive to alter its behavior. The absence of real consequences means that China can continue its activities with relative impunity. Over time, there's a growing risk of outrage fatigue. As these incidents become more frequent, both the public and the international community may become desensitized, treating each new confrontation as routine rather than urgent. Transparency, then, must be seen as a means to an end, not the end itself. It is a tool for building the case for stronger action, not a substitute for action. By exposing the reality on the ground, Manila can solidify alliances, encourage joint exercises, and push for more robust regional cooperation. Transparency lays the groundwork for collective action and shared deterrence. But on its own, transparency is an incomplete strategy. It highlights the problem, but does not solve it. The challenge now is to translate awareness into effective measures that can actually change the calculus in the South China Sea. The Philippines has sounded the alarm, alerting the world to the dangers it faces. But raising awareness is only the first step. Now, Manila must build the fire department, developing the capabilities, partnerships, and resolve needed to respond to future crises. The next step is clear. To protect its sovereign rights, the Philippines must move beyond transparency and invest in real deterrence, ensuring that its voice is matched by strength on the water. The cornerstone of the Philippines' security strategy is its mutual defense treaty with the United States, a pact that has shaped the country's defense posture for over 70 years. Signed in 1951, this treaty was designed to provide a security umbrella for the Philippines, ensuring that any external aggression would be met with a joint response. Over the decades, it has become a symbol of the enduring partnership between the two nations, reinforcing the Philippines' position in a region marked by shifting alliances and rising tensions. This treaty commits both nations to aid each other in the event of an armed attack, promising mutual support and cooperation. It has enabled regular joint military exercises, intelligence sharing, and the development of interoperable defense systems. For the Philippines, this alliance is not just about military might, it's about having a powerful friend in times of crisis. The transparency strategy, openly communicating intentions and actions, ensures Washington remains engaged and invested in the region. By keeping the United States informed and involved, the Philippines seeks to maintain a steady flow of support and deter potential adversaries. However, relying heavily on this alliance carries significant risks. While the treaty offers reassurance, it also creates vulnerabilities that are often overlooked in public discourse. The volatile nature of American politics introduces a constant element of uncertainty. U.S. foreign policy can shift dramatically with each new administration, and what one president promises, another might reconsider or even reverse. A future administration could view the treaty as an entangling alliance, questioning whether American interests truly align with those of the Philippines. Debates in Congress and among policymakers sometimes raise doubts about the costs and benefits of such commitments. There's also ambiguity about what specific event would actually trigger the treaty's obligations. The language is intentionally vague, leaving room for interpretation and potentially hesitation in a moment of crisis. China, aware of these gray areas, exploits this ambiguity by keeping its actions just below the threshold of a clear armed attack. Through maritime harassment and incremental advances, Beijing tests the limits of the alliance without provoking a direct military response. In such scenarios, the United States might hesitate to risk a superpower confrontation over incidents that fall into this gray zone. The fear of escalation into a broader conflict can make Washington cautious, even when its ally is under pressure. This reliance creates a risk of moral hazard, where the Philippines might take greater risks, assuming U.S. backing is guaranteed, while the actual level of support remains uncertain. The Mutual Defense Treaty is a powerful deterrent, signaling to adversaries that aggression will not go unanswered. But it is not a blank check. Its effectiveness depends on clear communication, shared interests, and credible commitments from both sides. Ultimately, the treaty's credibility depends on China's perception of American resolve. If Beijing doubts Washington's willingness to intervene, the deterrent effect weakens, increasing the risk of miscalculation. For the Philippines, the treaty remains essential, a cornerstone of national security. But its value is always subject to the unpredictable winds of U.S. politics, making it both a shield and a source of uncertainty in an increasingly complex region. The Philippines has courted support from European nations. Countries like France, Germany, and the U.K. have condemned China's actions. European naval vessels have conducted freedom of navigation operations. However, Europe's commitment has limits. The ongoing war in Ukraine consumes Europe's political and military bandwidth. European nations balance security concerns with economic interests. Manila must be realistic about the material support it can expect. Assertive transparency is a brilliant opening move, but not the entire game. The Philippines must pair its information campaign with self-strengthening. This means building tangible capacity on the water, enhance the capabilities of the Philippine Coast Guard and Navy, acquire modern patrol vessels to withstand intimidation, invest in better surveillance technology for maritime domain awareness, develop a comprehensive real-time picture of its waters. Legal action remains a potent tool. Consider new legal cases to address specific Chinese actions. The goal: impose real costs on China for its aggression, a strategy combining transparency, stronger defense, and legal challenges. Signal to Beijing that the Philippines is a determined actor. Ensure the West Philippine Sea remains free and open.